Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 100th episode of Golf Talk Live, this September 17th of 2015. Got a great show for you tonight. Of course, I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed tonight that we don't have any glitches. We had a little issue last week, which I'll tell you about in here in just a second. But before I do, let me remind everybody that we are live on blogtalkradio.com, at least for the time being. We'll see what happens as the night progresses. Quickest way to find us is go to blogtalkradio.com. And up in the search key, just type Golf Talk Live, and you will get to the show anytime during a live broadcast. And always at the top of the page, which is our home page, you will see the current and live broadcast, and you'll be able to listen in, as I said, live anytime from 6 to 8 p.m. Central or 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern Time for those of you on the East Coast. And for those of you out in the California area, that is 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific Time. But thank you for joining us here live on the program. And as I said, we're going to keep our fingers crossed. Don't have any issues. Last week, of course, right at the Coach's Corner segment, which we're going to start off again tonight with the new group. We ran into some technical difficulties on Blog Talk Radio's side. And essentially what happened is we had some difficulties. It cut off the transmission, and we weren't able to dial back in. But hopefully that's been taken care of this week, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed. And actually, Jamie and her group are going to be joining us a little bit later in the broadcast again. She very graciously agreed to come back and pick up where we left off. So thank you again for your patience and understanding. And again, I do apologize for any technical issues last week, and hopefully we've got the bugs ironed out this week. If you want to call in during the live broadcast, again, this is our 100th episode here on Golf Talk Live. Very proud of that, quite a milestone. A lot of talking, as I was just telling the boys off air. You can certainly do so by calling into area code 646-716-4667. Again, that number is 646-716-4667. Or you can email any questions or comments to me personally about the show, or if you're interested in coming on the show, you can email me at ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. Also get updates on social media at facebook.com/Golf Talk Live blog, and make sure you have blog on the end of that. And when you're on that page, make sure that you like the page if you haven't already done so. Appreciate all new likes. And you can also follow me on Twitter. Also update on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. As I mentioned, I've got great guest Jamie Leno Zimron, who's a Class A LPGA Teaching Professional, is going to be joining me in the second hour of the program. And alongside her is some two other great LPGA professionals, Dr. Renee Powell and Rebecka Heinmert, who's going to be joining us as well later in the broadcast. But first up, the boys with me here this evening, which is going to be part of the Coach's Corner panel discussion tonight. And on the Coach's Corner panel is Matthew Cooke, who's been on here a few times on the program, and is joining us as well for the first time is Chad Phillips. Let me just tell you a little bit about the two and bring them on. Matthew Cooke, as I mentioned, been on here a few times on the Coach's Corner panel. He's a PGA coach, PGA Certified both here in the U.S. and also in the U.K., and he's also the co-founder of Leap Golf in the U.K. and creator of Game Like Training. Joining alongside, as I mentioned, is Chad Phillips for the first time. He's the Director of Instruction at Game Like Training, and he's quite an accomplished player who competed not only in the junior and collegiate level, but also on the professional level, and he's been teaching golf for over 25 years. Lots of stuff, and I'm going to let them tell them a little bit more about themselves when they come on. Gentlemen, welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Thanks for having us, Ted. It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely, Ted. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Glad to be on for the first time.
Glad to have you here, and we talked a little bit before we went live on air, Chad. And Chad, of course, is originally from the Michigan area, but he's down working with Matthew in the Atlanta area. So, guys, and Matthew, let me just get you to start off here real quick. Both of you are working together on game-like training. And just sort of give a quick intro, if you will, where that takes place and how long you guys have sort of been working together here.
Well, me and Chad have been working together now for a couple of months, and we're currently at Bridge Mill Athletic Club, which is in just north of Atlanta, and it started off game-like training. It started off just as a coaching brand and a tool to help coaches structure their practice and help their students practice more efficiently and to coach them to a better level. But now it's turned into more of an actual golf program where we're taking students from complete beginners and all the way through a long-term athletic development model to their dreams of playing D1 college and professional level golf. So it's really, since Chad's come on board, it's took a dramatic change in where it's been going, but it's great. It's really good, and it's exciting for where it's going to go in the future.
And Chad, you, as I mentioned briefly in the intro, you obviously not only teach golf, but you've also played golf, and you were telling me off air that, of course, you had a scholarship. Where did you have your scholarship? And just tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So growing up, I just played every sport. Being from Michigan, you understand how it is up in that region. You're playing whatever sport the season allows, and so obviously I kind of put the clubs up in the fall when it started to snow, and did whatever else. I mean, that was normally going to be some hockey on the lakes or basketball indoors, and waited for the spring to roll around. And but ultimately, I had some success at golf. And then accepted actually a friend of mine, and we grew up together playing, and we both ended up at University of Mississippi. We both left there early. It was a little bit of a shock moving down south for me and him, and I went ahead and turned pro and gave that a shot, which was a tremendous learning experience. I think fantastic for my coaching background. And really what got me as a player, this is kind of leads you into the similarities Matthew and I share in our approach to the game and teaching the game was I went from being an athlete and playing golf and having some success to trying to figure things out mechanically as a professional and struggled and didn't really achieve what I wanted to as a player. And ultimately through meeting other instructors and trying to find my really develop my philosophy. Came across some of the same people. Matthew and I ended up in the same place. And now we believe, developing an athlete first is most important, and a golfer second. So that's how we ended up here.
And we're going to talk a little. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about the game-like training model, what you have sort of started from, and where Matthew has indicated it's sort of moving into a little bit different direction than what you originally had foreseen. But I want to talk about something that, and Chad, I'm sure you'll appreciate this as well, obviously having to play a lot of different sports, as I did growing up, as most of the people that tune into the broadcast each week know that I'm originally from Canada, and although I have migrated south, much like you guys have done now, sort of in the southern climate. And that's mainly really for twofold. First and foremost, of course, being in the golf profession, you want to be able to have access to a warmer climate, which allows you the option to be able to play and to be able to work all year round. Much like you had indicated, Chad, being from Canada, I was limited to what the season did, and I certainly don't have anything against going to an indoor facility, but it's just not the same. You just don't have, in my opinion anyways, and again, I'm not criticizing. There's certainly some advantages there as well, but I just got tired of shoveling snow and decided that I wanted to come somewhere was a little bit nicer, and I could still wear shorts, 365 days a year, at least theoretically. And
right,
one of the things that go ahead.
Okay. No, I was just gonna absolutely you can be successful. You can enjoy the sport up in the north, but ultimately, even if you're in the business up there in the winter, you try to make some kind of trip down here in the south anyway. So
Well, and that's exactly right. So what I wanted to do tonight on Coach's Corner, do things a little differently, and I've been doing so here the last few months, really. And again, it's not that I don't enjoy some of the questions that have come in, that have been emailed in, or people have contacted me personally and discussed. But I wanted to try and gravitate away from some of the, so their traditional questions. How do you fix my slice? And I've got this bad hook, and so forth, because it just gets a little bit, there's only so many ways you can tell people how to fix the same problems. And, even though some people might have a different approach in doing things, again, the basics sort of boil down to the same thing, open or shut club face, club head path, that sort of thing. So you can only tell people so many different ways. So what I wanted to do here, and I've started doing here in the last few weeks, is really giving some of the coaches and the teachers an opportunity to really talk about their approach to the game, and so this is what we're going to do tonight. So again, Matthew, I'll let you start off because you've kind of had some chops here on the program in the past. Let's talk about game-like training. You've got some good junior program, and we're going to talk about from beginner to major winner, and then also beginner to lifelong player. So let's start the conversation. Tell us a little bit about really the model, if you will, of game-like training. What does it mean? First off, what does game-like training mean?
Game-like training, first off, means training as much and as close to the real game itself, which every other sport does. Every other athlete, high-performing athlete, they've all trained in whichever sport they're athletes in. They're all trained very intensely and predominantly exactly the same as how they would play the game in a tournament. So that's the basic foundation of the program. All aspects, making it as realistic as possible, and just always having that in mind. Richard Schmidt, an incredible guy who's I'm not sure whether he's a professor now. He's retired now, but he's all about motor learning. That's his expertise. Him with Tim Lee. And he said an amazing quote, and a lot of people, even at the Olympic level, still go back to this quote, which is, are you practicing for performance, or are you practicing just to look good in practice? And that is really the foundation and the baseline of the program.
Right.
And like I said, it started off originally just as a brand to help other coaches in the industry for free, just to help them improve their coaching and to try and make their practices for their students more game-like because of the added benefits that it could give. And now it's turned into a full-scale junior program, completely full-scale, taking students from 3-4 years old all the way up until they're 18, going into college. Mm-hmm. And Chad follows the same beliefs and values that I do, and it just so happens that he's been kind of doing what game-like training's model already is, so his experience added to the program has just made it even more credible. And, so now, go on.
Yeah, it gives you a perfect fit, really, because now you've got somebody that's really walk the walk as opposed to just talking the talk. So that certainly adds a big plus to what you're trying to do. Chad, let me just mention this too, and then I want you to also talk a little bit about what Matthew was just saying. As we know, I'm also teach golf as well. I deal primarily with corporate types, and that I don't really get into as much of the junior programming in that. So it's always interesting when I get a chance to talk with somebody that does. And it's not that I don't have a desire or interest. It's just that everybody sort of has their different niche, if you will, in the game. Sure. Mine has always been working with corporate types because, really, to be honest, they need more help than anybody else. But at least any of the ones that I've seen over the years, I'm only kidding. Any of you corporate guys that are listening out there to the show tonight. But traditionally, golf instruction has really sort of been focused around the basic fundamentals, which was always important to learn, and then sort of let everybody fend for themselves. And really, here golf has taken, especially golf instruction, has taken really a big change in the last decade or so. It's moved into a different type of model, if you will. It's not just teaching everybody how to hit the ball and how to work the ball, but now it's coaching, and there's the mental aspect of the game, and so on and so forth. So, Chad, there's been a big, I'm sure you've seen, even though you're still relatively a young guy out there, you've seen a lot of changes from what traditionally golf instruction has been to moving into what you're doing now with this game-like training. So what are some of the things that you've seen change, and where do you see sort of golf training, if you will, or coaching moving forward in the near future?
Well, I guess if you're laying a title on it, I mean, it's exactly what you're saying. It's becoming it's coaching. It's not a lesson. I mean, you know, I grew up and we had, you know, we certainly weren't poor, but you know, lessons were a little bit out of our reach.
Sure.
But the reality is those lessons were just that. They were one-on-one lessons, and it was hit the ball like this, and you know, but it was very basic. It was what you would refer to as fundamental with grip, you know, grip and setup and alignment, and then, you know, where the club's coming from, path, club face angle, and then we started to introduce some technology, and then it went in that direction, and that kind of started to become the answer. And you know, just judging off my own career as a player, that's probably what stunted my growth as a player, was becoming, if you will, too technical, and I forgot what it was like to enjoy playing the game, to be honest with you. And I certainly don't want that to happen to any of my students. As far as the coaching model, I think what we're doing is just finally starting to realize that we can teach golf to kids the same way that we teach every other sport to them. I mean, that's just what it boils down to. They're learning in groups in everything they do. At least all your mainstream sports, with the exception of golf. It just hasn't happened. But we're starting to see a shift, for sure. Starting to see a shift. And the kids, quite honestly, at the younger ages, that's where they want to be. I mean, it's really simple to see when me and Matthew get together and we're working with 3 or 4 kids. They're having more fun than standing there with you say I'm relatively young, but I mean, when a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old or even a 13-year-old standing there with a 40-year-old all day long, once a week, still it's not as fun as hanging out with their friends and playing games.
Well, imagine putting them in front of a 51-year-old with some snow on the rooftop. So I know exactly what you mean, and I don't mean that in a professional standpoint. I'm just referring to, obviously there's an age difference between myself and both of you, but and I'm not trying to sound like some old codger here on the air, but basically what I'm talking about is there's a lot of by the way, the jokes are free, guys, and it is the 100th episode, so I've got to try and add a little humor into it. But all kidding aside, I think, and this is not to knock, I mean, obviously, like every other sport, golf has to progress, and it is starting to move. Sure. And I've, just one of the things that I really enjoy about doing this show is I always get an opportunity to learn as well from some of the people that I've had the pleasure of interviewing. And one of the things that has always, sort of interested me is there has been a much slower progression, I think, than other sports, but there is a progression that's starting to happen in golf. And guys like yourself and some of the other guys that I've had on the show here are starting to, or have for many years now, have made that transition into coaching, and not just, and again, that doesn't mean that lessons are going to stop and we're never going to give another golf lesson anymore. It's just that it's now evolved into a whole different game. And those that really want to be able to play at their best have to sort of evolve along with it, not just the players, but the teachers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the long-term athletic development model is what we're going to see more of. And I mean, listen, we are 100% behind, and I enjoy it, and I do it with every student. I work on the mechanics. I make sure that they swing the club properly. I use TrackMan. I own TrackMan. I use video, but we're looking at Matthew's over there testing them on their physical, their fitness level, really. We're looking at their physiology. We're looking at their mental game. We're looking at, their ability to strategize on the golf course. So it's everything. And we're trying to make it fun. And and overall, it's about performance more than anything.
Matthew, let me ask you something, because Chad brings up a very valid point. You're working on a lot of different aspects of the game, including the mental part of the game. And since, you guys have just mentioned that you're working sometimes with students at a very, very early age, 3-4 years old, obviously you're not going to get into in-depth. So how do you decide, or when do you decide, and again, it's going to be different for each player, of course, depending on their abilities. How do you decide when it's time to work on certain aspects of their golf development? Is it, is a certain age, is it too soon for some things? Or is it sort of, open field, whatever goes type of thing? Or how do you approach it?
Well, I guess I don't guess. What you have to do is you have to keep a track of the growth, for starters, especially when you get them at a young age, around 3-4 years old, all the way till they're around 6 and 7. You'll see them, and like you said, it's different for every student, but around from that time, from 3, 4 to 6 and 7, they just need to be active. They just need to run, jump, throw, kick, catch, all of these fundamental movement skills. They need to develop their motor control abilities. They need to develop those things. And then if you're working with them in groups, which we do, you just have to keep a very good track of how they're performing in these fundamental movement classes. So you do test them, but almost without them knowing, and then you keep measuring their height. I mean, it is actually a lot of work when it boils down to it. You have to keep measuring their height. You have to keep looking at them every time they're in training. You have to really observe, not just tell people what to do and where to stand, but you have to set things up, create an environment where you can observe all the students to get a better idea of where they are developmentally, and then they start to filter into different kinds of groups based on how they're growing and how they're maturing, because they go through different cognitive phases as well. Thankfully, we have an incredible person on the advisory board, Dr. Kay Anders Erickson, who's a professor at Florida State University in cognitive psychology and expert performance, and he's helping us and showing us at what stages students can go through these cognitive changes and where their attitudes start to change and their beliefs and values might start to shift based on how their brains are developing. And then we know it's time to move them into a different group and start to implement a different coaching model to then help them progress further, where they start to specialize in different golf skills. And then they'll hit growth spurts when they get a little bit older. So it's just a matter of assessing and measuring and tracking all the time, constantly.
Do you guys also? I mean, obviously, most of the kids that are going to be coming to you obviously have some sort of an interest in golf. But as we all know, that sometimes kids want to just try something new and they get in there. One of the dangers, and we've talked about this on the program before, one of the dangers, particularly when you're dealing with some of the youngsters, is, you get an overzealous parent that thinks, okay, this is going to be the next Tiger Woods or this is going to be the next Rory McIlroy. And so quite often they're pushing these youngsters into, these different training regimens, if you will. So how do you know when to back off a little bit, too? If you see that a student is maybe, certainly you want them to have fun first and foremost, but maybe, they're not really gravitating as much as maybe this other student over here. So do you kind of back off a little bit and regroup and let them sort of go at their own pace? And how do you prevent from parents sort of, jumping on the sand pile and saying, okay, we want little Johnny to be, the next superstar? How do you balance that out?
Go on, Chad. Go on, Chad.
Chad, go ahead.
I truly believe that that is something when I got into golf instruction. Well, first of all, I was playing, so I got into golf instruction as a way to fund some playing. But ultimately, when I decided I wanted to be an instructor, I didn't have a plan for that. Let me just say that.
Sure.
And had some success with juniors, and then I realized there's some serious challenges, and I think that, listen, the parents all mean well, but they're not. They have their own jobs. They're not educated on that, and we've had to educate ourselves. And Matthew's, kind of the new breed coming up. I mean, they're already on top of this. I mean, this is stuff that I learned, 10 years into teaching. So, but you just do your best to educate the parent on what is important at that moment. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. And we've got the science now. So if we can if they'll just hear us out, that your 6-year-old does not have to have a perfect position at the top of the golf swing right now.
Right.
And I mean, that's just what it boils down to. You just have to let them know. We have a great family that we work with, and we have a 7-year-old, and she's fantastic, and she's a good player, and she wants to have fun. And I think we're showing the parents that the fun part and the active part, learning the necessary basic locomotive skills is more important. That's just our job, is to educate the parents on that. And some kids are going to enjoy it more than others.
Sure, and the reason why I say that is a couple of weeks ago we had on my other program, the Women of Golf, where co-host Cindy Miller, who's an LPGA professional and quite well known in the industry. You probably both have heard of her or know of her.
Absolutely.
We actually interviewed Kim Llewellyn, who is the women's golf coach at the University of Virginia. And one of the things that she talked about was a lot of times getting contacted by parents, and that for some of the young girls that she's working with in her program. And a lot of times parents sometimes will, try to, influence or sway, some of the process. And so this is something that you obviously have to find a balancing act, because more often than not, especially with the juniors, the parents are paying for the programs and so forth. So you have to be and this is something important. And a lot of people, and particularly those tuning into the program tonight, if you're a coach or a teacher, some of you I'm sure already know this, but for some of you maybe newer coaches, or even some of you seasoned ones that maybe don't understand that, it is important to certainly have the parents involved. And you do have to sort of sometimes walk with kid gloves, but at the same time, you also, as Chad and Matthew have just indicated, you've got to really sit down with the parents and make them understand that it's a process, and you can't, rush, him or her along too quickly. Otherwise, they're not going to enjoy it. And so there has to be a balancing act, and this is something that I think, unfortunately, the industry as a whole could improve on.
Absolutely. And some parents are going to buy in immediately. You're going to tell them, and they're just going to trust you. But you have to be prepared to break out your everything, all your proof. You need to be prepared to break out the science and be able to speak about it intelligently and explain to them why. Because we're kind of blindsided, with what Tiger did actually growing up.
Sure.
And I think people dismiss the fact that he played other sports. I mean, he certainly didn't pursue them, but there was an athletic background behind that. And you're going to find that with most of the great players. And you're going to find it in the future. I mean, that's just how it's going to be now.
Right. And one of the other things too, guys, that I think we're all faced with, and it's not just in the golf industry, but it's in really every aspect of business now, is by virtue of the internet and the ease of being able to get access to information. One of the dangers, I mean, it can be a valuable tool when used right, but it can also be to a coach's detriment as well, because, again, you're going to get parents that are going to surf and they're going to see somebody else's website or somebody else's information. They're going to say, well, so-and-so over here does this. Why aren't you doing that? Or, and so they have to be made to understand that, everybody has their own style. What works for one may not necessarily work for another. And everybody's approach. We all are individual beings, so we have to be cognizant of that. I want to talk to Matthew. I'll let you start this off as well. Tell us a little bit about some of the program model that you have, and a little bit about the science behind it.
Yeah, no problem. Well, all of this as well, by the way, we update our website pretty much every day, just to further educate anybody that comes into contact with us. But the model that we use is just a simple color code model. There's 6 different levels that students go through. And just like karate or jiu-jitsu or those kind of sports, they have the colored belts. And just like the TPI system, they have the colors with the hats. They've followed the same model. So we've got a color system and 6 different levels, and within each level there are certain tests, and we test not just the body, but we test for skills. So we'll have putting, short game, approach shots, and tee shots, and we'll have certain skills tests. And these are not just any average skills tests. These are backed up by a lot of Mark Brody's work and all the data that he's collected. And the fitness tests, we've used the TPI's model there, so it's backed up by a lot of evidence and work from the Titleist Performance Institute. And then we actually have a mental component, a psychological component, where we actually have tests for our students on the psychology of performing golf shots, and we put them through different tests there. And in order to move through the levels, you have to pass all the tests in each section. And when you pass a full section, you gain a star. And it's just a constant progressive chain from what we call beginner to major winner. And all throughout the whole system, the emphasis is being placed on being an athlete. So you start off here at this level, which white level is the start, which is the basic level, and you'd work your way through all the levels up to the highest, which is the color of blue, which is basically a PGA Tour player. The skills tests and the psychology and the fitness data tests are all backed up by a lot of evidence and data from some very credible resources. So it's quite accurate, and it's a great tool for people to progress through. And within each of these levels, we don't just have the tests, we actually have coaching models within them, so how we would coach at that particular level. Because typically, let's say, for example, your 3-year-old to 7-year-old, or 3 to 6, they're at the stage where, like I said before, they need to learn to run, jump, throw, kick, catch, and all of that stuff. So we have a coaching model that suits that particular stage. And then if they're at the higher levels, we have another training model where it's more emphasis on training these types of skills this particular way. And the science, we've been fortunate enough to have some really good people look at the program, look at the system, look at the coaching models, and help us build it. We've had some great guys from the Olympic Committee, and had some great professors that have been involved with looking at it and helping us. And it seems to be working, and other industries are using pretty much the same model, and it's from the long. It is taking, in a simplistic term, it is taking the long-term athletic development model to another level.
It's interesting because, as I said earlier, a lot of golf for years was, again, primarily working on the fundamentals. Certainly talked about, course management was a term that used to go around. You don't hear that as much. That was something that Nicholas, referred to in his day of playing competitive golf, was having a strong course management. And now we're hearing all kinds of, psychological evaluations, and you're hearing all kinds of things. And again, I know some of it's, if you water it down, it's essentially the same thing. It's just put into a different, more of a modern term or modern form, if you will. But also, I think as other sports have progressed and golf has sort of seen everything from Major League Baseball to basketball to football, and have seen some of the benefits of working with sports psychologists and all of this thing and personal trainers, has added a whole new different perspective. And again, I use Tiger obviously as an example because he really was a game changer. Not only did he have a phenomenal ability and still does have phenomenal ability, but he brought something to the game that really had never been there before, and that was a physical fitness regime, if you will, or regimen, excuse me. He also had a mental capacity that was, in my opinion, far beyond, and again, even some compare it to Nicholas, I think even more advanced in a different way, and maybe in a modern way, than even what Jack Nicklaus had. And I think it's just, this is the modern player. And a lot of people might be listening or might hear the program and say, well, okay, but, my kid's not, probably going to play in the PGA or LPGA Tour or something like that, so why do they need to have all this? But society is sort of moving to, it's an advancement, if you will, of society. As we understand and develop as a species, for lack of better words. We're wanting to better ourselves. We're wanting to sort of take things to the next level, and golf should be no different. So Chad, talk about as director of instruction here. Both of you, I know, work together. You work as a coaching team, of course. Explain a little bit about how you guys do that. What role each of you play. Do you sort of do the same thing? Sorry, go ahead. Yes.
Sorry, can I just start? So, just like we say, we're beginner to major winner, but we also have beginner to lifelong player.
Right.
So within the program, there comes a stage where the child or the student might not want to go all out intensive to learn to be the next PGA Tour player. So we have a coaching model for that, so they can keep enjoying the game and keep playing. So we do factor that in.
Absolutely. I think ultimately what we're trying to accomplish is, we want to be a positive influence on young ladies and gentlemen more than anything, and then help them develop into athletes. What are they going to learn out of it? I mean, probably as much as anything, some solid goal setting and commitment, how to achieve those goals, and that's going to carry them through. We know the percentages. We don't go around blurting them out to our students, but we know the percentages of AJGA All-Americans and Division I All-Americans that actually make it. It's hard out there. It's difficult.
Sure.
Looking at Jason Day, I think he's 10 under through 17 again today. I mean, you got to go beat that guy. That's a tall task.
Well, and it's changing, because now it's not just limited to the U.S. and even some of the European countries as well. You've now got Asia, you've got Australia, now it's a global game. It truly is a global game. And so you've got, for instance, I'll give you an example. You don't see it as much on the men's tour as you do the ladies' tour, but there's a huge influx of very, very talented players from Korea that have and other areas that have sort of, for lack of better words, infiltrated the LPGA Tour. I mean, if you look at the Symetra Tour, about every third player or maybe even every second player is of some Asian descent, primarily either Korea or some of the other areas. And it's just that it's just exploded. And I forget who it was. I don't think it was Matthew, but one of the other coaches that I had on here that's worked over there. The name escapes me now. Matthew, you might know who I'm talking about.
David Louis Mahoney.
Yes, thank you. Has worked over in that area, and he said it was just amazing when he was over there working and coaching and teaching, just to watch the explosion of golf in that area. So, just to go back to what we were talking about, this is something that you're seeing. Golf has become a global sport, so there's a lot of competition, not only here at home in the United States and even some areas in Europe, but it's now encompassing many other areas as well. So now you've got, instead of maybe 1,000 players, you've got tens of thousands of people potentially wanting to be on those tours. So you've got a much bigger pool to draw from, and it's not easy to challenge some of the top guys.
No, absolutely not. I think it's interesting looking at it now. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of traditionalists that, and I was kind of, I was growing up when Nicklaus was just coming out of kind of his dominance of the game. And we saw Norman play pretty well and dominate the game, but not win a lot. And then Tiger hit the scene. And really what I'm seeing now when I look at the world rankings, there's just a bunch of players that play like that. Now, Tiger was a special player, so I'm certainly not comparing anyone's record to his at this point. But the point I'm making, you look at the top, I mean, you've got this, it's an absolute boxing match at the top of the world between Jordan and Rory and Jason Day. And the reality is, Bubba Watson and Dustin Johnson could take that spot. And it only takes a 5-month run now. They're all so good. So it's a pretty interesting dynamic out there. So there's that many good players now.
Yeah.
That many good players.
So many.
Well, here's something else too, guys, that I think that really, and this is just my opinion. I think there's a certain element of truth to it, I believe, but again, it's my opinion. But if you look back, and I grew up in the Nicklaus era and Trevino and Palmer and all of that, through a lot of that, and I would never want to change that. I think it was fantastic to watch all these guys play. But the truth of the matter is, as good as all of those players were, Player and all the other ones, there wasn't really a huge influx of people gravitating to play golf. No. However, when Tiger came on the scene, and some of the other, all of a sudden there was just a massive upsurge of people wanting to, especially young people wanting to come and take up the game of golf and learn how to play, and as I said, be the next Tiger Woods. Where you didn't see that in Nicklaus's or Palmer's. There was an admiration, and again, the society has changed too. I mean, it was traditionally, and I hate to use this term, but a rich man's sport. It was very expensive. Not a lot of people could afford to play. But with some of the advancements that the PGA and LPGA have done in order to help grow the game, it's been made, particularly with the help of Tiger, more accessible to a greater pool of people, if you will, that have never had access before. So that's part of it. I think has done it as well, and I'm sure
I mean, they're peaking a lot early now professionally. It's unbelievable how young. I mean, to see the play from players like Jordan Spieth, even Lydia Ko. I mean, that's unbelievable at that age to be able to play that good.
Yeah, some of the young ladies that we've interviewed on the other program from the Symetra Tour. I mean, it's just amazing. And what I found most amazing, and I've mentioned this to a couple of them as we've talked to them, Cindy and I have talked to them on the show. What's really most amazing is their knowledge, not just about how to play or how to hit the ball or what have you, but their knowledge of how to keep themselves focused, how to get themselves when they feel themselves drifting in an area that's not going to help them that day, they're able to regroup. And these are young ladies that are barely scratching 20 years old, and it's just amazing. And I was out at a range not that long ago and watching a youngster, and I think he was probably about maybe 12, 13 at best, maybe 14 at the very top, and not a very tall player, but I guess average for that height or for that age. And I mean, he was just hitting ball after ball. He certainly had a practice with purpose. I don't mean it that way, but he was just hitting them and just striping them solid every time. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, you little, and I can't say it on air, but I think where I'm going with that. And it really, the point I'm trying to make is you're right. They're starting much younger, and they're accepting the challenge. And I think, even though a lot of people say that sometimes this generation that's coming up now has sort of been led to believe that they can, climb Mount Everest, there's a certain truth to that. I think that there's a confidence that some of them have developed over recent years, and they're able to go out and with the help of coaches like yourselves are able to tap into that energy. And that's something that you don't ever, when you look back in the history books of golf, you never really saw. There was a few top players that stood out. But now, Chad, I think you said there a moment ago, now they're battling out, several players at the top are battling out week out, where you didn't really see that. It was only, a handful of players that battled week in out. And it was primarily 2 or 3 that dominated.
Yeah. I mean, truly, the top 50 players in the world are all just incredibly good. And a guy that's 40th in the world could easily become a top 10 player. I mean, he's that close. That player's that close to actually being a top 10 player. And I don't think it was like that 30, 40 years ago. That's a big difference. So I guess depth of field, really.
Well, and also, too, when you look back to when Tiger first came out, which is really kind of interesting. It just shows you the mindset that's changed in golf today. Most of the players that were originally, and in fact, if you go back to when he first came out in '97, and Hello World, there was a lot of sort of
I remember that,
right? Most of the players were seasoned veterans on the PGA Tour that kind of thought, who does this kid think he is? And then when he started coming out there and earning those Tiger stripes, suddenly there was an intimidation. But it wasn't really the young players that were as intimidated as it was some of the seasoned veterans. And it's interesting now and I think what it is the mindset at that time, and again, I'm not saying I'm 100% correct, but I think was you had to sort of earn your way, if you will. And nobody just sort of came out and took charge. It was sort of like an unwritten rule that, hey, this is sort of the hierarchy of golf, and you have to, be out here for 5 or 10 years, and then you can start, whipping the pants off everybody. Exactly. Right. And I'm not trying to say there's a criticism. I'm not trying to suggest that there's any sort of unwritten rule, but that was sort of really the impression that I got. And Tiger just come out and said, hey, hello world, here I am, and I'm going to, I'm all about the win. And he went out there and just within a very short period of time, won his first tournament. Then he won his first major, and then just dominated from there. But it was always the seasoned players that had been on the tour for 5-10 years that really seemed to be taken back by that. Well, now what you're seeing with a lot of these younger players coming up is they want to knock that guy off the sandcastle. They want to knock the guy off the mountain, and they don't care who he is or how good he is or who taught him. They're coming up there and they're going to give it their best. And the interesting thing is, they're actually succeeding because
that's what the guys are doing now, aren't they? All the youngins,
right?
And all the
exactly.
All the ones
since Tiger Woods, nobody has really dominated. I mean, Rory has certainly racked up some wins, and Jordan Spieth certainly has done very well here this season. And you're always going to have some shining stars, but for the most part, you're really not seeing anybody. And I don't think that it's not that it's ever going to happen again, but I think it's going to take somebody with a very strong personality to really come out. And I don't think that this younger group of golfers that are out there now are going to be intimidated.
No, and I think you're 100% right. It's definitely a mindset. They weren't prepared for Tiger. They didn't think that was coming. They thought something good was coming, just not quite that. And and now I think guys are like, okay, it's possible. Don't forget about what Tiger did to us or what Tiger did to everybody. So I think now they believe it can happen. Whereas prior to him, I don't think they thought it was going to happen.
No. So and I think it was really a lot of the players at that time were in shock. I think it was in disbelief.
Right.
Because I won't name names, but I can remember a few comments that came out in the airwaves at that time by some of the players, and it was, they just thought, he was sort of a young cocky kid and very arrogant and full of himself, and they didn't think he was going to have a snowball's chance, and of coming out here and dominating the tour, and then all of a sudden, it was like a pack of dogs with their tails between their legs. Heading in the other direction because he proved them wrong. And
because he won 3 of his first 8 is what he did.
Right, exactly. And whether he, at this point, really, to be honest, and I would certainly love to see him get back. I don't know if he will ever, and probably not likely ever get back to the same level as he once was because, he's getting a little older himself. But I'm certainly sure he has some good golf, but he has certainly, looked back on his career as far as wins and what he has done for the sport, has nothing really to be ashamed of. He's done a phenomenal job for this game, and he's really moved it in a direction it needed to go for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. He's been nothing but a positive influence on the game. I mean, he's had his moments where he made some mistakes, but I think overall
I think everybody's done that stuff.
Well, and again, listen. I mean, I'm sure that if you were to look under under the veil of a lot of people, and I'm not making any excuses. I think some of the things, and obviously we're referring to personal side of things. A lot of people make mistakes, but again, if he had not been who he was or in the position he was, I'm sure it would have blown over in a day. So you have to factor that in as well. Guys, let's just because we're it's hard to believe this hour is just blowing by. But I want to give you an opportunity to just sort of again let people know where they can go to get more information. Number one, but also just sort of wrap up if you can a little bit about game-like training, some of the other things that you're working on, maybe for down the road that you can sort of hands on if you can. Matthew, go ahead. I'll let you start.
Yeah. You broke up a little bit then, but I think I got all of it.
Oh, okay. Well, let me say it again. Let me say it again very quickly. just sort of let the folks know where they can get more information, number one, and then also, is there anything that you're doing for down the road? Any other further changes in order to further enhance your program?
Yeah, well, you can find everything we do, we put online, gameliketradinggolf.com. Everything from how we teach and philosophies and models and methods and strategies, all of that stuff, we constantly update the website with that. So www.gameliketradinggolf.com is where you'll find that. And for down the road, we're now, since we've got the main man Chad on board, we have a website that's coming out with the Golf Channel Academy, which is directly linked to our Game Like Training Golf website. And we'll, in the future, in the very near future, we're going to be running a lot of online videos, online workshops, and a lot of online coaching content, as well as just growing the junior program. And for maybe a little bit further down the road, we would like the program to be implemented in multiple locations. So, big plans for Game Like Training Golf.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. And it's ever changing, and we have, we're going to start to mix in. If you're a junior golfer, I mean, I've got a couple of my younger students coming out and playing with one of my elder girls who's already committed to play, and she's a senior, so she's going to play on a full ride next year at University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. And that's going to be one of the coolest things for the kids, I think, is an opportunity to come out when you're 10 or 11 years old and experience some golf with some kids that they've made it. They've at least made it to that first goal, playing college golf. We truly believe that if we get them young enough and they're committed and motivated, we can get them to college golf, and that's a huge goal. If you get that, we'll see what happens after that. But let's help them get into school and at least further their education with it.
Let me add. That's fantastic. Let me ask you guys something, because as you were mentioning that, in preparation for a college entrance and so forth, have you guys positioned yourself in such a way that reaching out to some of the colleges and letting them know that you're working with some of these juniors, and if they're interested in maybe coordinating with you as these players get closer and are in a position to help them in order to get some of these coaches to help you guys tap in and help the students that maybe want to reach out to these different universities. Have you got something set up, or are you looking at doing that? Do you understand what I'm saying? We have ongoing relationships with colleges, and so things are I'm starting to get some. I just got a request. I spoke to Corey Maggart, who's the assistant coach at Auburn, and he wants to come out and watch one of the training sessions in the next couple of weeks with one of my students who's a freshman in high school. So I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but something certainly beginning to happen. Early recruiting, although I'm not a huge fan of the early recruiting process. Sure.
And trying to commit 12-year-olds, but
no.
But definitely, I see some things evolving, and some possibilities and opportunities with the college coaches, absolutely. But I think the college systems are doing a great job. I mean, I think that's a great comparison of what Matthew and I are trying to do. Is we're giving them a little taste of what will happen if they do play college golf. It's the same kind of training.
Yeah, exactly.
We put a lot of focus on developing the relationships with the college coaches.
Yeah, I'll tell you something else too that I don't know whether you guys have considered or not, but from time to time, throughout your season, you might even want to consider, and not obviously. I mean, you may have a couple or two or three that you're sort of working with right now, but you may even want to consider having some of these coaches maybe just come and visit and explain, maybe in a session. What they can expect, what some of these kids, or take them to a college and let them sit down and talk with a coach as a group and say, okay, let this individual say to them, okay, this is what you can expect when you get here. Because a lot of them really don't know. A lot of these kids haven't got a clue as to what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea.
And, that's something, that you may want to get somebody that really if it can't be one of the coaches, maybe somebody that really could help in that aspect, because I think that would be something as well. I had a gentleman on, and again, the name escapes me, but he sort of did that. He actually was sort of a go-between and helped parents, particularly, not that he was signing anybody up or doing like that, but just what the process is, because a lot of people haven't got a clue. They don't know what the process is. They don't understand what they need to do or what they should be looking for in a golf program. And I just think that would be something that if you're working with a lot of junior players that potentially have that as their on their checklist, it might be worth your time as part of your program to periodically have somebody come in and sit down with the group and just tell them what they can expect in a college experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of our collegiate players as well, they tend to, if you can get them in, even if it's informal, that's normally inspirational for the kids. So anytime I have a opportunity or one of my college players is coming in, I'm going to try to get some of my juniors in to experience that so that they can, if not anything, be inspired. If they want to ask questions, they can. If it just helps them work a little harder the next year, then fantastic.
Well said. Guys, I want to thank both of you for coming on Coach's Corner tonight and on Golf Talk Live, the 100th episode of the program. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing that with me. Matthew Cooke and Chad Phillips from Game Like Training. Much success, guys. Thank you very much. And Matthew, I know you'll be coming back on some future panel discussions. And Chad, now that I've got your email, I'm going to send you a list, and maybe we can get you on a couple before the end of the year, or if not, we'll get you lined up for next year to come back on the program as well for some future panel discussions.
I look forward to it.
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it. But guys, thank you very, very much. And just one more time, Matt, for those that are listening for the last hour, want to know where to go and get more information on Game Like Training, where they can go.
Yeah, www.gameliketraininggolf.com, and everything will be stored right there.
Perfect. Guys, thank you much again for coming on Golf Talk Live, and particularly had some great discussion tonight. Thank you very much. Certainly learn more about what you guys do, but it's always good, as I said, to share information with one another, and this is a great format to do it. So I appreciate you guys coming on tonight, and I look forward to having you back.
Well, we appreciate having you. Look forward to being on again.
All right. Sounds good, guys. All right. Have a great evening.
Thanks,
great
Ted.
week. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
All right. Thanks,
Cheers.
Ted.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. That was Matthew Cooke and Chad Phillips, as I said, from Game Like Training. Great couple of guys. Matthew, of course, originally from over in England, and Chad up from the Michigan area. And certainly enjoyed having their discussion tonight and talking about really some of the junior programs that they're working with at Game Like Training up in just north of Atlanta area. And always enjoy hearing some of the new things that are going on, and it sounds like they've got a great platform there. So I look forward to having them on the program. I see that my next guest, of course, is waiting very patiently, so let me just introduce her. Jamie Leno Zimron, of course, was on last week for a very brief moment. Unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier in the program, ran into some technical difficulties, and unfortunately, the broadcast got cut off just sort of mid-swing, if you will, of talking with her. So she very graciously agreed to come back this week along with Dr. Renee Powell and, of course, Rebecka Heinmert. Some of her partners, if you will, agreed to come back and talk this week. Hopefully everything will, touch wood, will work correctly tonight, and so far it seems to be go well. So let me just introduce Jamie and bring her on, and the others will join us as the show progresses. Jamie, as I mentioned, has been on the show before. She's a Class A LPGA Teaching Professional as well as a Golf Sensei. She has been pioneering 5th Degree Aikido Black Belt, Somatic Psychologist, a corporate and Vistage International Speaker, as well as an executive trainer, mind-body fitness expert, and citizens diplomat. She was a championship junior golfer and has won senior titles as well as 3 gold medals in the Maccabiah Games, which is the Jewish Olympics. She is co-founder of the Association of Women Martial Arts Instructors, Israel Women's Martial Arts Federation, and Middle East Aikido Project. Her award-winning Ki Golf and Ki Business trainings bring holistic insights to both the way golf is taught and leadership and peak performance cultivated. Jamie Sensei travels widely coaching kids in conflict zones, as well as CEOs and boardrooms to golfers on the course, and is known for dynamic teaching style. She's dedicated to seeing every businesswoman score like never before, and her passion is helping everyone at a level to work, play, and be your best. Without any further ado, let me bring on Jamie Leno Zimron. Good evening, Jamie.
Hi, Ted. Nice to be with you again.
Yeah, well, we're going to try. The second time's a charm, I think they said, or maybe that's third time. I don't want to say that just in case. But thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jamie, for coming back on, and we'll keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully everything goes well tonight. Jamie, let's since we did unfortunately get cut off last week, and I know its first little bit is going to be a little bit repetitive, but I think it's important because I know it's something that's important to you, and I'll keep an eye out, of course, for Renee and Rebecca to join us a little bit later on. But let's talk about Ki Golf and then also Ki Business as well. So just explain again for those that are tuning in for the first time or maybe missed last week portion that you were on. Explain a little bit what Ki Golf is and then Ki Business.
Okay. Well, Ki Golf is a blend of what I call Eastern, sort of ancient Eastern wisdom and our modern Western concepts, technologies, all of these things. So it really blends East and West, some old and new, and is a holistic approach to better golf, more enjoyment, and, of course, golf improvement. And it derives from the martial art of Aikido. Ki is from Aiki, and they're basically two characters or kanji in Japanese. And the first is Ki, which is your life energy, and the second is I, which means unity or harmony, synchronicity, oneness, everything working together. And so Ki Golf really blends my background in Aikido, which I've been training for and teaching for almost 40 years. I've been golfing for longer than that. And I'm also a psychologist and a body worker, a fitness, mind-body fitness expert, I would say, if I can say that of myself. And so I really tried to blend these things into a very comprehensive approach to playing better golf that blends the mind, the body, and the spirit all in one. I think what we see in golf typically is that there's a lot of focus on the physical, be it clubs or technique, that sort of thing. And that's important, no question about it. Then sometimes now we're seeing more emphasis on the mental game and all the way from golf hypnotherapy to all kinds of affirmations and positivity in our approach to golf, course management, mental course management. The mental game, mental mastery is incredibly important, but it seems that alone isn't bringing about golf improvement. Some people are like, well, just relax and flow and breathe, and that'll do it, right? That's important, but that doesn't handle it either. Just forget about all those other things and just relax. Well, you still need some technique. I mean, you need all those things, and the truth is that when we stand over a golf ball, everything's happening all at once. Our mental faculty, our thoughts and psychology is going on. All of our physical body parts, our clubs, our equipment, that's going on. Our emotions, we really need to pay attention to our emotions. They're part of who we are, and we could be afraid. We could be bummed out from what we just did. We could be pissed off because we got a bad lie, whatever it is. So emotions are going on. And then we have our spirit. I mean, we're always looking at our target and our goal, our purpose, what we're trying to accomplish. All that's going on inside of the golfer, of us, of you, of me, as we stand over a golf ball and have to get all of our energy in our body wound up, coiled, delivered into that tiny little white ball. So it's a big challenge. And, we really need to integrate all of those faculties and what I say, master our energy systems of mind, body, emotion, spirit in an integrated way. When we know how to use our energy better, then we will also know how to deliver that energy better into the golf ball in all kinds of circumstances.
And so, what are the, just explain, maybe you can go a little bit further, just explain in a little more detail what you're referring to, because I think some people that are not familiar with what you're talking about may not understand what you mean by their energy.
Okay, great. We'll go back to that. In fact, I was just at the BMW Championship on Tuesday. I was in Chicago, and we had a corporate group from Vistage International, which I speak for, and we had a day there, and I was able to ask some of these executives, the CEOs, I asked them a question: what makes your golf ball go? And it's a question that I ask most of my students, or when I'm doing a seminar: what makes your golf ball go? And there were all kinds of answers, like, well, because I hit it. The swing, the momentum, my thoughts, the club, the impact on the ball, the angles, the physics. I mean, all kinds of answers. All that's part of it. But it still kind of begged the question, what makes your golf ball go? And I gave these very smart, successful people the answer. My answer is you. You make your golf ball go. And what does that mean? You're standing there, your ball's sitting there. It doesn't go anywhere until you hold the club, and it's your energy that you need to transfer into that golf club. You wind up your body in a certain way, and then that's what makes the club move. That's what creates the swing and the momentum. That's what delivers the club head onto the ball. And ultimately, it's really your energy that makes your golf ball go. It's kind of like if you pull up to the gas station, you bring this piece of metal and tin, your car there, and then you put some gas in. Gas is fossil fuels. Gas is organic matter that burns up, and then your car goes somewhere. So we bring our organic matter, this thing that makes us alive. It's a thing when someone dies, honestly, when we die, it's not going to be here in our bodies anymore. It's this life energy that we in the West don't really have a word for. We call it life energy. They call it chi, ki, kundalini, prana. They've got words in the East for that, and they cultivate how they use their energy. And they think of that as something very substantial, tangible, real. We don't think of it that way because we can't kind of put our finger on it. It is real. It's what animates us, and it's what ultimately animates our club, our swing, delivers into the golf ball. So when we're watching a golf ball fly out there, what we're really looking at, for better or for worse, is ourselves, how we shaped our bodies, how we formed ourselves, and then we're able to deliver all this energy inside our body into the ball. Something very interesting to understand just how powerful we are, how powerful our energy is. When we address the ball, time on a clock from address, top of the backswing, to impact, tour tempo is about 1 second. A really slow swing would take about a second and a half, 1.75 seconds to go from address, top of the swing, back to impact. So it's not a lot of time, right? And the club head is going 0 miles per hour at address. In about a second, maybe a little more than a second, that club head is traveling at speeds faster than cars on a freeway, 70, 80, 90, over 100 miles an hour for the tour pros these days, 160 miles an hour for some of the long drivers. That's pretty incredible that in 1 second we have so much power in our energy when we coil it up and deliver it properly that it could generate that kind of speed in 1 second.
Something I wanted to ask you, and you actually raise a very interesting point about that. You talk about just sort of your average, player out there, and then you look at some of these long drive. Obviously, your physical being can contribute a certain amount, but why is it that you'll, as an example, I mean, I know the answer and I know you know the answer, but why is it that you'll see somebody, if you're delivering the club head, at say 90 miles an hour, how is it in say 1 second or 1.1 second, and somebody that's delivering it at the same amount of time, in other words, 1.1 second, but they may be delivering it at 130 miles per hour. How is it they are able to generate that much more energy and literally in the same amount of time?
Well, that is related to a couple of really key factors, and these are principles that we practice in martial arts. I think they're universal principles in how energy works and is used efficiently. And these are some of the things that I really try to bring to golfers through Ki Golf. So let me give you a couple of those principles. One is balance. It's a big difference between tour players and amateur golfers. You rarely see a tour player out of balance, and you certainly don't see them hitting a ball and kicking backwards and falling off their stance and all of that. And balance is related to a very key principle around containment of energy. So what needs to happen is that as we coil on the backswing, when we have a lot of stability in the feet and the legs, that we can coil that energy and contain it, because we need to contain it like a spring and then deliver it, release it. But without containment, i.e., if you sway, if you lift, if your feet come up, if you lose your balance, if you take the club back and then you swing down real hard with your arms and then it kicks you back, you've lost the containment of energy. Without containing the energy, you don't have it to, in a concentrated way, deliver into the golf ball. So that's part of it. Some of it is around strength, some muscular strength. Not only, but some. That means some strength in your leg muscles, right, and your quads and your legs, and your hip flexors and your glutes and all the pelvic stability muscles, in the spinal muscles and the abdominal muscles that hold up our torso, and of course, in the arms and hands. So we have to have some muscular strength so that we can create the stability in the container and hold it while we also are able to move. And movement relates to flexibility and relaxation. When we're really tight or gripping the club really hard, basically tension is about stopping energy. It's like a hose, right? You crunch it and all of a sudden the water's not flowing. We'll call the water our energy, our flow of energy, our breath and energy flow. Well, if you stop it, you don't allow it to flow, then you have taken away, for example, if you're watering your garden and you've got the hose kind of crunched up, you have less water to water your garden. When you release that, you get a nice flow of water and you can water the garden. Same thing. We have to have a lot of flow, a lot of energy coming out and onto the golf ball. That happens when we have both those principles of containment and balance. There's some physical strength and also flexibility and relaxation. And each person has their own physical structure. And so those, they can use their structures properly. We just actually at the BMW were treated to have Brian Harmon come and talk to us. He's the kid who just had 2 holes in ones in one round on tour recently. Yeah, it was real fun to talk to him. But, I think I'm taller than he is, and I'm 5'5.5". We're about the same height maybe. So he's a really small guy. Guys like Zach Johnson, there's a bunch of them out there who are not physically tall. We do have a lot of tour players. A golf body these days is starting to be these real tall, lanky guys. You look at the women on tour, some of them are hardly 5 feet, 5'2", 5'3". They're really small physically, but they're able to use their structure, following the principles that I just talked about, and get the max out of their swings, and then they can hit the ball really well. So, and generate that club head speed. The relaxation, flexibility and relaxation that combine with a really strong, stable structure and moving in sequence are what allow us to really maximize our use of our energy and deliver it into the ball.
Jamie, let me ask you something, and as you're talking, I was thinking here about something as an example, and I wanted to sort of get your, take on it. And I'm going to use these 2 players because they're sort of at the opposite end of the spectrum. If you look at a player like Ernie Els, who is, fairly tall, obviously he's over 6 feet, and then you look at a player like, and I just lost his name, Nick Price. 2 different, both very tall, 2 different swings. Obviously Ernie Els famously referred to as the Big Easy, very slow, very methodical, smooth swing. And Nick Price, of course, a very jerky, sort of quick motion. Both very tall players, but both very different approaches to that. Obviously, they've found their rhythm, what works for them. How does an average player go about finding what is going to work for them, finding their balance? How do they go about doing that? And what are some of the techniques that you're implementing through your martial arts training that could help them?
Well, regardless of a person's actual physical stature and size, we know that it's possible to hit a golf ball really well. We can see that from all these different body types and sizes on the tour. So that's a nice thing to know, first of all. Second of all, something that I learned and teach a lot that I've learned from martial arts is what I really consider to be universal principles. I usually run most of my golfers through all of the sports: hit a home run, throw a pitch, hit a forehand in tennis, hit a backhand in tennis, do a free throw, pretend you're bowling. We go through all of those motions. And what people discover pretty quickly is that all of those motions begin in the feet and the legs. They don't begin in the upper body. So I'm very big on lower body, and I find that it is there in every sport. It's there on how you build a building. You have to have a first story before you have a second or third story. You have to have a cake before you put frosting on it. Unfortunately, a place where golfers go wrong, and so many amateur golfers know it, they try to hit the ball with their arms and their hands. They use a lot of upper body strength. They're even schooled on take it away with your hands, big shoulder turn. They're all thinking about their shoulder turn and their straight left arm. Not that those are bad things, but they need to originate down below in the lower body and in the feet, and using the earth properly, using stability in their feet. Jack Nicklaus himself said that golf is played between the arches of your feet, and I call that the insteps. And there's a direct connection. A little pressure on your left instep begins to turn your right hip. That engages all of the big muscles of your legs, and it gets your hips, your belly, your center moving. And then, now you can create some dynamic tension to your upper body. That's when you get your hands and your shoulder turn. As it turns out, the way I teach it, your hands know what to do based on that little pressure in your left foot on your backswing, your right foot on your downswing. This is if you're a righty. If you watch a quarterback throw a pass 50 or 60 yards downfield, or you watch a pitcher throw a pitch 100 miles an hour, they have pushed off their back foot, the instep of their back foot and their knee, and that turns their hips, and that carries all the energy and power into their shoulder, elbows, hands, into the ball and the breath, and wham, you have a great pitch or a great tennis shot, whatever. So that's really the way all sports work, and golfers tend to not follow that. And I think we need to. This is the way it all works, and we're really missing that. So a lot of my training, and I have DVDs to explain it. I've patterned the golf swing. I give a lot of golf fitness work so that people really, first of all, they get their brain down in their feet. They haven't thought about it. A lot of golfers think we don't have footwork just because we're standing still. Not true. It's very important what we do with our feet, what we do and what we don't do with our feet. A lot of golfers pick them up and don't pick them up and move them and lift and, all kinds of stuff, fall back, step forward. I mean, they do all kinds of funny things with their feet. But doing the right stuff with your legs and feet is super important. And, boy, I watch all the tour pros. We can talk about having an athletic stance. What does that mean? What does that look like and feel like? What is being centered and balanced and connected? And if you move in proper sequence from the lower body through the upper body on the backswing, the downswing, and the follow-through phases of the golf swing, which there's only 3 of, that's pretty nice. If you do that properly, you automatically start to have timing, tempo, rhythm. It's when we lift our hands or come down with our arms and hands that we've skipped over engaging all these important muscles of our body. In the first place, we have lost the ability to optimize containment and delivery and release of energy, and we've lost repeatability. We've lost a lot of things. So it's so important, and I think that this needs to be emphasized much, much more than it is in golf. Turns out that it also creates stability. It gives a place for your mind to go, and now your mind, you're using it in a clear, simple way. It doesn't have a chance to be worrying and wondering and fearing and overclouded and all this stuff. It's just very clear, focused, simple, and just make a couple of these movements regardless of all the outer circumstances. And all of a sudden, you start to create properly sequenced, repeatable swings. I usually tell my students that the golf swing is like a washing machine. It has to go through its cycle. You can't go to rinse before you've washed. Right. And it takes a little while. You can't rush the cycle. You go through the whole cycle. You come out with clean wash. You go through the whole cycle. You come out with a balanced, rhythmical golf swing. And Ernie Els, the Big Easy. I think we all know that, in fact, I always sort of joke, I can say this even on air, I'm Jewish, but I teach the rhythm method. I mean, it's really the rhythm method that works in golf. And so many of us are trying to kill the ball and force the ball and brute force the ball, and then that doesn't work, and we beat ourselves up, we're mean to ourselves, have a negative, violent self-talk, and then we try to kill it some more with our upper body, and we fall off of it, and it's like, oh, my God, give it up. Let's stop doing all that. Let's just go to these principles, found everything on that, and lo and behold, it starts to really pattern the golf swing, built on the target line so that we're on line and on plane, connecting, starting with the lower body, moving right up through the hips and the upper body. All of a sudden, you have a beautiful swing. Actually, I'm going to say one more thing. If you think about a swing, where do we think about swings? Kids on the playground, right? They swing. Right. We swing. We would go on a swing. We put our kids on swings, and it's called a swing set. So first of all, we have a set, and that set is these big, strong iron poles cemented into the ground. It's very stable. That's one of the things I'm talking about. So if we create this stable structure, and then we have flexibility in the ropes or chains, whatever, that holds the actual swing, all right, so that then that has flexibility, it can swing and move. Then you put the little kid on the swing. Well, the kid is sitting right in the center. Now to get moving, what does the kid do? Pushes with their feet and their legs. You can't go anywhere. That kid could tug all day on the ropes or whatever that the swing's hanging on. They will not go anywhere. They've got to start pushing with their feet. And then they go back this far, and they release, and they go through that far. And then they use some more legs, and then they go through some more. And the swing gets a little bigger and bigger. It gains momentum. But it's always matched up. It always moves right through the center, and it originates, it initiates with the feet and the legs. Really important.
Well, and you raise an interesting, and first off, Jamie, you're thank you for bringing up the rhythm method. That's a great thing, and we're here. I'm celebrating I'm celebrating the 100th episode of Golf Talk Live. So what a great way to boost up the ratings. But anyway, I know exactly what you're talking about. But what's interesting, and I think you kind of hit it on the head. What a lot of people don't understand is it is a sequence of motions. And it is a rhythm. And I think a lot of people, one of the things that frustrates me is I see a lot of people out there on the practice tee, and they're sort of standing sort of ramrod straight, and they're just not, there's no movement in their lower body. As I say, they're just picking up the club, or they're just turning their big shoulders, their upper body, and there's really no movement at all in their lower body. And then you get the opposite side of the spectrum where you get people that will move too much of their lower body, and they're all out of sequence. And I think, and it's not to criticize some of the modern golf techniques, but I think there's information overload with a lot of golfers today, and I think they're part of the frustration is it's too confusing. They don't understand because they're being told to put their arms in this position. They're told to do this and do that, and ultimately what ends up happening is they get so much information that when they're standing over the ball, they've got too many thoughts in their head. And what you're really saying here is not that some of these things aren't important, but they're not as important as really the energy and life force that we have inside and putting that in a rhythmic path, correct?
Yes, and it does have what my students like to call body parts involved in it. I mean, there's some specific techniques. I call it mechanics for the magic. And what I mean is when you're addressing the ball, I usually encourage people to have their toes out just a little bit. Maybe forward toe a little bit more than the back because they want to turn and hold it on the back and then push through and release through. But toes out, knees in a little bit. Knees in gives you pressure on the insteps. This is what Jack was talking about, Jack Nicklaus, about between the arches of our feet. When you do that, what happens is you've kind of really anchored yourself and you've centered yourself. You've organized yourself around the golf club, which is kind of the center line of all the action, right? And so toes, knees in, then hands close around the golf club. We are all completely centered and organized. A little pressure on that left instep turns the back hip and sets up the perfect plane for the backswing. It'll kind of just ease and float up in position, right? I forgot to mention levers. We got to have a little wrist hinge. So little levers also adds to a swing speed. Then to bring the club down. In fact, the other day at the BMW, I asked the executives, how do you start your backswing? I got all these, I think I don't know, I guess I kind of just, nobody really knew. Yeah. And then I said, how do you start? Okay, go to the top of your backswing. Start your downswing. I think, I don't know, I kind of just, I think I come over the top. I shouldn't, but I do. But, I turn my hip. They don't really know. I asked them, would you set your business up that way? You don't really know exactly what you're doing, why, how your marketing's work. No, you know. Anyway, so I suggest something new. It's not just turn the shoulders or take it straight away with your hands. I want you to just push a little with your left instep, feel your right hip turn, and now feel that perfect path that's set up for your backswing. Okay, now at the top of the backswing, what are you going to do? Push with your right instep, let that begin to turn and clear your left hip. That's the way you would throw a football pass. That's the way you would throw a baseball. That's how you hit a forehand in tennis. Let's just do that because we're throwing a ball. And then just drop your elbow will drop in, boom, we'll release the club through. Now we're completely through end of impact zone, full extension. And now how you're going to finish your swing, don't just lift your arms. Turn your right foot so that you're standing on your right toe, and actually turn your right heel. Your heel is the lever to get your hips turned, to get your shoulders completely turned, to let your hands and club fly through completely. And now you have a completely connected core body movement in the core and lower body, and completely connected with the peripheral movement of your hands, arms, and club head. You will have a beautiful orbit, just like the sun in the middle and then a planet orbiting around. You will have a beautiful orbit of a golf swing, and it'll be all intact, and it's going to deliver beautifully. Well, these executives were like, oh, my God, you're kidding. Oh, what, really? I'm like, yeah, try it. And they started doing that. They were like, Insta-great golf swing. It was pretty amazing. I'm going to read you something. Can I read you something?
Sure, yep. Yeah, please, go ahead.
This is actually in one of the manuals in my Ki Golf instructional series, and it's some quotes. This was from a book called Par Golf for Women in 1953, an introduction to Louise Suggs' book, LPGA Hall of Famer, one of the founders. And this was written by Ben Hogan. And here's what he said about her. The swing she showed in 1945 was a beautiful thing, so smooth and rhythmic, so soundly joined together, she was bound to be a winner. Her swing appears to be completely effortless. Despite her slight build, she is consistently long off the tee, and no one is as right down the middle. Her thinking in regard to good golf form is simple and basic. And then Louise Suggs herself, this is a beautiful quote, and I actually used it in the videos. It's got all this beautiful music because I love it so much. It's something you were talking about a minute ago. The players whose head is bursting with a disconnected picture of 1,000 details in the golf swing is defeated at the start. For one mind cannot send so many different messages to so many parts of the body during an uninterrupted motion such as the golf swing.
Right.
So, I mean, This is perennial. This is universal. This is just kind of the way it works. And I think we need to pay attention to these things a lot more.
You know, what's interesting, when you listen to some of the, interviews of some of the players after they've won a tournament, and, obviously they get the usual banter, what you did on hole number 15 and so on and so forth. But when you ask the players, what were they thinking? It's amazing, you don't hear them come up with 4,000 different things that they were thinking about, especially when they were in rhythm that particular day and they won the tournament. I remember Bubba Watson said that, was it a couple of years ago when he won the Masters, and he was talking about that, and somebody asked him, Bubba, what were you thinking about? And he said, I wasn't really thinking about anything. And what the point he was trying to make was he was sort of in a zone, if you will, and things happened effortlessly. He didn't put a lot of thought into it, and that's why he ultimately ended up winning the tournament. And conversely, I think the year before, if I'm not mistaken, he lost that tournament, and sort of that same question came about. And one of the things that he said was that he just didn't feel like he was in that rhythm, if you will. And it wasn't a matter that he wasn't hitting good golf shots or wasn't making good putts. It just, that feeling, that sort of rhythmic feeling wasn't there for him that particular day. And I think what happens with a lot of the amateurs, and correct me if I'm wrong, is they cloud their minds with so much thought that they don't learn to just feel. Most players, when they talk about feel, it's not necessarily feeling the club head and so on and so forth. It's a feeling of really calmness over their bodies and not rigid and tense and tight. And I think this is what really you're doing with your martial arts, correct?
Yes, it's very much in that realm. And what I would say to that is that the learning process and performance is kind of a dialectic, right? I mean, we need to learn some things. You have to think in order to learn. For example, if you're learning to write the alphabet, you have to learn how to make an A and a B and a C. So you've got to learn the technique, and you've got to think about it. How do you make that A and that B? And you see a little first grader, they're thinking hard. Well, the mind is at work, and the brain cells are growing these little dendrites that then find each other and create neural pathways, and then you learn so that it gets easier to write an A, and you don't have to think about it so much. Or if you're learning to drive a stick-shift car, you actually have to think about it. You have to get that explained, learn what it is, understand it, and do it enough that pretty soon you're not thinking about it. So we can't just say to golfers as they're trying to learn, well, just don't think, because they have to learn something. But yet you can overthink. You can think too much. So there's a whole dialectic there. One of the things that I've done or imported from the martial arts is this notion of kata. Kata means form practice in the martial arts. Most of us have seen Tai Chi people in the park, and they're repeating a form. In fact, we call them forms. And what the brilliance, really, the wisdom of the martial arts masters was to put all these complex movements into a kata, into a form, so that you could teach them. The form is correct. It's got lots of details in it. It also has qualities of movement, positions, transitions. And you can learn it bits at a time. Focus on this part, so you can learn it, digest it, start to get good at it. And then, as the master said, the purpose of the kata is to throw away the kata. It's like the kata of an A or a B or a C. We throw that away after a while, and we write our own A, B, and C, and you never think about it again. But you need the kata to learn it. So this is what I realized one day walking down the beach in San Diego. It was great. And I realized all of a sudden the golf swing is a kata. It's a repeating form of a backswing, downswing impact, follow-through motion. And that one of the biggest issues golfers have, in addition to wanting more distance or accuracy, what most people want is consistency. And they never know what swing is going to come out, and they're always tweaking and fixing and wondering, and is this right, is that right, am I too upright, to this, to that? And they just run around chasing one tweak after the next. Instead of, no, here's these principles, let's get balanced, centered, grounded, calm, relaxed. Let's move in proper sequence from our lower to upper body, and let's pattern that. So I've actually created 6 Ki golf katas, 6 forms that basically it's all the same. I mean, there's one golf swing, so they all kind of come to the same thing. But there's 6 katas using your golf swing so that you can practice and repeat. And anyways, so this is what really works, you know. And when people practice through kata, they start to develop correctness and repeatability.
Wow.
And this is cool. I'll just read you this one quick thing from one of the Zen sword masters. Through training and practice, movements come to exist in your arms, legs, and body, not in your mind. And whatever you do freely in disregard of the forms, but not violating them. The forms exist for reaching that state. This is the ultimate end of all disciplines, where you forget what you have learned, discard your mind, and accomplish whatever you set out to do without being aware of it yourself. But that comes later, you know, and that's when Bubba's talking about, and champions, you know, they're in that state. But that's come about as a result of a lot of training and practice so that they can be there.
Right, exactly. Jamie, let me just interrupt you real quick here for a second, and I see that we have somebody else on the line, and I believe it's probably, I'm assuming it's Dr. Renee Powell. Let me just, what I'm going to do is very quickly read both of the biographies just in case, and then we'll bring our other guest on as well. As I mentioned, 2 others are going to be joining us here in the conversation, Dr. Renee Powell and Rebecka Heinmert. Dr. Powell, of course, was an LPGA Tour player from 1967 to 1980 and is only the second African-American woman to play professionally on the tour. She began golfing at age 3 in East Canton, Ohio, when her father, William Powell, opened the first course ever designed, built, and owned and operated by a black golfer. She started competing at age 12, played in over 250 tour events, and became the first African-American female Class A member of both the LPGA and PGA. And in 2003, she was named the PGA's First Lady of Golf, and in 2008, she received an honorary doctorate from the University of St. Andrews. In February of this year, Renee became one of the first 7 women ever granted honorary membership into the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St. Andrews, alongside LPGA greats like Annika Sorenstam, Louise Suggs, like you mentioned earlier, Laurie Davids, and, of course, the Princess Royale. Dr. Powell is sought after to speak and play golf around the world and globe, around the country, and globe, while she continues to run the Clearview Golf Course and the Clearview Legacy Foundation, with a focus on serving underprivileged kids, women, and, of course, military veterans. And very quickly, Rebecka Heinmert, she's also a Class A LPGA Teaching Professional, and she grew up in Sweden and was a member of the Swedish National Golf Team for 5 years. Based now in San Francisco's East Bay, she played in 3 NCAA championships for San Jose State. She won a three-time academic All-American. She was, a 3-time academic All-American, went on to play professionally on the LPGA Futures, or Symetra Tour as we know it now, and has been a member of the LPGA Teaching and Club Professionals division since 2004. Her mission, of course, is to help golfers increase their enjoyment of golf by improving swing performance, on-course strategies, and mastering the monkey mind within. So let me bring on our next guest, and I believe it's Dr. Powell. Actually, they're both here now, so let me bring both of them on. Dr. Powell and Rebecka, welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you guys.
Thank you so much. Great to be in your company.
Well, thank you, Renee and Rebecka. Thank you very much. And again, let me just first very quickly before we continue on, let me apologize to both of you. I've already done so to Jamie for some technical issues that we had last week. But I think we've got them cleared out this week. So we'll continue with the conversation. Jamie, of course, was just talking a little bit about some of the things that she's been doing with her Ki golf and that. But I also know that the three of you have worked together on something else, and I want to talk about that now while I've got all of you on here. And that, of course, was the retreats that you've been working on, the Every Businesswoman Golf Retreats. Jamie, why don't you start that off, and then Dr. Powell and Rebecka, please feel free to jump in with some of your comments on that as well.
Well, first of all, let me say hi to Rebecka and Renee. It's great to have you here. It's really fun. Hi. Just to kind of tee it up, and we can hear more from them as well. But one of the things that we are doing is working with a strong focus on women in golf, and women in golf generally, and also on executive women in golf. Golf, as we know, has been traditionally, I think we could safely say, kind of a man's sport. And quite honestly, it's kind of a white man's sport as well.
Right.
And some of the growth of the game is in expanding participation by women and by people of color, minorities, globally, different nationalities. We're expanding our junior golf programs. So we're really, bringing a lot more people into the game, and this is a big focus of ours. Golf in the business world is really pretty much the business sport. It continues to be the business sport, and a lot of rapport is built on the golf course and getting to know our potential working partners through playing with them. Deals are made on the golf course and in the clubhouse. So it's really important for women to be in that game, and women who are in business and leaders, executive women. Golf is a skill that's really a business skill, something that can really help them in their business lives as well. Then there's things, there's all kinds of tournaments. There's fun ones. There's charity tournaments. There's networking, community events. So much is involved with golf, in the business world, and increasing just our social connectivity, shall we say. So this is a focus, is really helping women to enter the game, to play better, those who are playing okay to play even better, those who are playing well and really want to become competitive. This is a focus that we have, and so we've been offering retreats that we just started in the last year, and quite honestly, and Rebecka can even tell you this, she just gave me the good news that our latest retreat is sold out.
Oh, wow.
In advance. And we only sent 2 emails and we're all sold out. So it's really kind of cool. We're really excited about building a very unique, holistic, diverse kind of women's golf community, and I'm very honored to be able to teach with these 2 extraordinary women.
Rebecka, let me start with you, and then Dr. Powell, I'd love for you as well to join in this. One of the things that I've noticed here, and this is one of the reasons why, in addition to this program, I also do another program called the Women of Golf. And actually, Dr. Powell, you were on that program with Cindy Miller and I believe it was last year, or it might have been earlier this year. And one of the things that we're trying to do is really help women understand the value of golf. So, Rebecka, obviously you're involved with this now as well. Obviously, you're a great teaching professional, but you're involved with Jamie and what she's doing in that. How important is it for women to really take a hold of golf and embrace golf and not be afraid to get out there and use it as a business tool?
I think it's very important. I worked with many women at the NorCal Golf Academy out here in Walnut Creek who are interested in playing golf because they realize that they want to feel confident to be able to accept the invitation when they do get to play in a tournament or a charity event or with their boss. So I had just recently, a couple of weeks ago, a woman that I would train to play in this tournament, and she was really, really nervous about it. And she ended up beating her boss. And she was so excited about it. And she just felt so confident. And, she sent me an email about it, and she was just all fired up. So it's so much fun to see that it can be done. And that, this is an important event for her because she realized that to make new connections, she needed to maybe not beat her boss, but just,
right.
be able to come around and not feel embarrassed and not feel like she didn't know what she was doing. So it was really great.
Well, fantastic. And Dr. Powell, first off, let me just say congratulations on being receiving an honorary membership at the Royal and Ancient Golf Club of St. Andrews. What a certainly an honor, and amongst some other great members of the Ladies Professional Golf Association. You've obviously have been had a long-standing career and enjoy this great game as well. And you're doing a lot of things, not just for women, but also to help some kids that really could use a leg up, for lack of better words, as well as women, and also some of the military veterans. So what are some of the things that you think that can really help bolster this movement, if you will, of getting others involved and enjoying the sport and taking advantage of some of the what's the word I'm looking for? Some of the avenues and doors that it can open for them.
Well, first of all, just please refer to me as Renee. And it's great to be on the show again. But you know what? I have so enjoyed every bit of getting various people involved with the game. And, golf is a sport, because it's an individual sport, it's something that is a huge confidence builder, too,
Right.
And not only do I work with a lot of youngsters, I work with some youth that are in foster care. I do programs for them. And also for the military women, a lot of our veterans. And what I see is how golf really helps to bring out their personalities. It helps to create confidence in what they're doing. Golf, especially for our women military veterans, is something not only is a recreational sport, but it's also a very therapeutic sport. And I think that so often women don't realize that golf is a sport that they can play. And as Jamie had said earlier, so many people look at it as just a white man's sport,
Right.
And not realizing that it's something that every single person who can swing their arms and swing a club can play this game. And that is what we are doing. I mean, we within our group, we're a very diverse group within ourselves. I mean, like Rebecka being from Sweden, and Jamie doing the things that she does, and myself being African American, and really reaching out. We all love the game. We all want to get as many people involved in the game, and I think each of us feels that everybody should play this great sport. Whether you're female, whether you're young, whether you're older, or whatever. And so I think we bring so much to the table, and we're able to touch so many different individuals. And the whole thing about getting people that are businessmen into the game. I was at a luncheon today, and one of the things, it's a women's impact group here in Canton, Ohio, and we do a women's golf league also within that group. And I had so many women coming up today, and they were saying, "Well, we don't, we have a league." And they said, "Well, but we're not golfers. We don't play, but we love to play." I'm like, "Well, that's what it's about too," because I do 6 weeks of instructions with them. And so I had all these women signing up today because they are, in the workforce, in business, and being able to use golf not only as recreational but as a business tool too. So I think we're all, the three of us getting together have brought so much to the table in such a diverse way, I think. And I think it's just fun.
Well said, Renee. Thank you. It's interesting that you mentioned that too, because I remember when I was done. I didn't go this past year, but I went the year before to the PGA show in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting was actually some of the most interesting things that I saw, and I'm referring to not only just products but businesses, were actually run by women, business women, and it was interesting that the passion that they had. And what sort of boggles my mind about the golf industry, and I understand, the reasonings behind it, even though I don't agree with it, they still want to continue to grow this game, but they're still going down the same path. And I look at the statistics that you see out there right now, and literally, I think it's 53% of the population here in the United States alone is women, and yet the majority of marketing in the golf industry is still going towards the men. And I foresee that if there was a shift in effort and a shift in funds in the opposite direction and going towards getting more women, embracing women in a bigger scale, and there certainly have been some headway made, but there's still a lot of work to go, they would see this game grow at an exponential level. And yet they still do that. So what do we need to give the industry, if you will, a push in that direction?
I think the industry needs to look around and see who is not in the game. Who do they not see? And when we talk about percentages, then you're talking about percentages of people who are not in the game, who could play this sport and really grow the game, very, very rapidly. And because I always walk around. I go to a lot of meetings. I go to the PGA show, and I look. Okay, so who do we not see? And if their eyes could see the same things that I see, then we may do a little bit of a shift.
Right. Exactly. And that's what I was talking about. Is that there's it's not just women, but it's also different ethnic groups that are still not gravitating to golf because there's a misconception, and rightly so, because it's been ingrained for years, that it is still predominantly a white male sport. And yet, here we've had, in recent years, we've had a young player, now he's getting a little older, Tiger Woods came in and dominated the sport for a long time, which created a surge. But again, it was on the male side. And, Cindy and I have had the opportunity to interview a lot of up-and-coming stars on the Symetra Tour who are just chomping at the bits to get out in the LPGA. And yet the resources are still going to the other side. And yet the ladies are just as accomplished, in some cases even more, than what's happening out on the PGA Tour. But yet, again, the focus seems to be in that one direction. So, again, Jamie, I guess through your efforts and Renee's and Rebecca's and others out there, it's going to take a combined effort of the industry, I think, to be able to move that and shift it in a different direction. Do you agree?
Oh, I absolutely agree, and that is why we're teaming up. And, we're not the only ones, but we feel like we have a really strong team here, and we are really looking at how we can build a really strong women's golf community where women have new opportunities and they are, have continuity as well, and that it's kind of beyond a lesson or a group or something here, but that they're really part of something. Something I wanted to say is that we did our first retreat earlier this year at Chardonnay Golf Club in Napa, which is just beautiful and wonderful, and they've welcomed us. That retreat had, it was almost, I think, half black. We had a couple Latinas. We had executive women. We had a real estate agent. We had, different kinds of professions and levels in their professions. Our ages were diverse between age 26, I think, and 70. We had, everybody was there, right? Gay and straight and all kinds of religions.
Right.
I mean, it was just a diverse mix of women, and all there out of a love of golf, and we just got together. Honestly, we've been starting a lot of these golf retreats now with some of the Ki training because, as we talked about earlier, universal principles, and everybody being able to get their sense of their center and their base and their ground and their energy flow. These apply to everybody, and doing some exercises, mixing it up, connecting things that don't usually happen, in a golf improvement setting, right? A golf instruction, and then founding all of our golf instruction. And the truth is that we do a lot of golf instruction, putting, chipping, long game, golf fitness, mental game, all of that, because women actually need, and businesswomen need, to have better golf skills. And so we do a lot of golf training. At the same time, we look at some of these other issues involved, and that's unique. And though it turns out that those kinds of skills and qualities are what are needed for self-mastery, for leadership, for embodying our confident and open leadership presence, a focused mind, dealing with adversity, all the kind of character and honesty and integrity, teamwork, playing in a scramble, that's a team. We have a teamwork in our retreats where people are really supporting each other and learning with each other at different levels. And so, all of this goes on actually within the retreat and things that we address, and then we make it very clear and work on how does this really apply, in who you are and how you are, and your health, your performance, your leadership, the culture in your company, the culture in your family. All of these things are relevant, and we can work on them through golf and the golf skills themselves. And of course, we're very aware that better golf skills are needed for women to be in the game more, and to also, of course, be in the business game. So those are, just some thoughts, and it's just been delightful to see how everybody engages and gets along and supports each other.
Right.
Rebecka could probably share some more about all of this too, I think.
Go ahead, Rebecka.
I just think that we have a lot of fun.
I forgot about that.
Jamie and I had a retreat last month, and that one was also sold out. We had 16 women up in Napa, and it's just great to have the connection that Jamie and I have too, because we have a great. I think we complement each other very well in terms of our backgrounds, but we sort of hold the same beliefs about golf and how it translates, mind, body, spirit, and I think that's really great. And I think that really resonates too with the women that came. And it's fun to work on all aspects of the game. It's not just technical, it's mental and emotional, and how you're going to show up when you play, and being able to socialize with others. And that's how I started playing golf. It was just a social thing. It was hanging out with my girlfriend. And from there, it got more and more competitive as I got older, but that's how it all started, just a social game. And it's whenever there's a single person that was playing, my dad would always invite this person in to play with us. And so I never, ever had a problem playing with a stranger.
Right.
Ever. It was always a normal thing. And over here, it's a very sort of like, ooh, no, I don't want to play with somebody I don't know, Everybody's a stranger until you get to know them. So it's really, it's just a friend who plays golf. Everybody who's a friend of mine who plays golf, that's great.
And I think it's just... Sorry, yes, please, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to toss in, it's been really fun to all teach together. I think Renee and I were delighted to, we're talking about all this mind, body, spirit, but Rebecka is also, sort of the millennial, and we're bringing in technology and TrackMan, and we're working with video and helping everybody to understand the technology that's out there, and apps and all that kind of stuff. So, it's not like we leave anything out. It's all important, and we really try to address it all and utilize all of the the kinds of technologies, whether they're body-mind technologies or technologies that we really bring all that in and have fun with it and interact with it.
And I'm a firm believer in all that as well, and I think it's a matter of finding the right balance. I think sometimes you can go too far one way and not far enough another way. But what I was going to make a comment here, because when you mentioned fun, and I got thinking about this, that your retreats were in Napa Valley and at the Chardonnay Golf Club amid the vineyards, and it started the wheels started turning, and I was wondering, was there a little wine involved in some of these retreats? Did that sort of add to at some point through the retreat?
Well, of course.
Well.
At the last retreat, we had a wonderful dinner. And yes, we did have some wonderful wine, and for this next one coming up, we don't have a dinner plan, but I'm sure there will be some wine at the end of it.
Actually, Renee, weren't you complaining? Renee, weren't you complaining? We were sort of working and playing too much, and you didn't even get to have enough wine out there, considering you came from Ohio.
When Jamie first mentioned, we're talking about Napa Valley, and actually it was the first time, even though I traveled so much, I'd never made it to Napa Valley. And I thought, wow. And then when she said, we're going to be at Chardonnay Golf Course, the first thing I thought about was wine. I'm like, wow, outstanding. What a great trip. And how, we're going to really have a lot of fun. And you're right. We worked a lot. But we also had fun, with it all. It's fun seeing people learn and seeing them get it. And I think that's the greatest that all of us enjoy.
I want to add in there, Ted, if I can, I just want to add, Chardonnay has just become kind of a home to our women's golf retreats, and just a shout out to them. They've been so welcoming and wonderful, and the golf courses literally winds through the vineyard. So great venue for sure, and we will continue there. But we have in our sights some other wonderful places, including Sedona, the Lake Tahoe area, perhaps Hawaii. We're looking at Palm Springs. So, we are going that, and now we're just talking on the West Coast. And we're looking at some things as we expand further. So, but we know that Chardonnay is certainly our kind of our home and our birthplace, with a lot more to come.
Well, that's fantastic. Now, I know you mentioned earlier that you've got another retreat planned coming up. When is that? I know it's already sold out, but when is it? Just to let the listeners know, when is it? And have you got some others planned in the near future that those that might be interested can reach out, Jamie, and get more information, or where can they go to get the information?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I would say the best thing to do is to sign up for the newsletter at my website, which is RebeckaHeinmert.com, and that way you will get all the updates when there's a new retreat in the works. And you can also go to Jamie's website and sign up there, which is...
Well, so we'll give you the websites. Bless Rebecca's heart. She's been handling a lot of the web dimension of this, which is just great. So her website is RebeckahHeinmert, Rebeckagrew, and my website is kiaigolf.com, KIAI golf.com. So, and our Every Businesswoman Golf website is being rebuilt, but it will be up maybe a month or two. That one, we'll let you know when that one comes back up. But right now, RebeckahHeinmert.com is great. And, email us, let us know you're interested. We are keeping waiting lists. We are going to be putting everybody on our growing list, which is growing already, to let people know about our future events. We're already planning Every Business Golf Retreat the first weekend of March, and probably we're going to hold that in Southern Cal in Palm Springs. And we are just really sitting down to start to map out our coming schedule. What's been really great is this year in these initial retreats that we've been doing, they've been such a success, and we've really been delighted to be working and teaching together, seeing how we blend and complement. And so we've done a lot of development work and done a lot of good things this year. So we're just sitting down to map out, our coming schedule. But things are growing, and it's a really exciting time in golf. It's an exciting time in women's golf. And we are thinking we're getting Ted, I'm surprised you haven't asked already how come you can't sign up. We're getting a lot of guys saying, wait, I want to work with you all.
That was just
we're looking at how we can.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that. Where's my invitation? But definitely keep me posted. Unfortunately, we're just about out of time here, but I do want to say this. I would love to have the three of you back on again at a future date, and maybe we can actually get some of the people that were involved in some of your retreats on the show as well, just to get some of their comments and feedback. So keep that in mind, Jamie, for a future broadcast. And Renee and Rebecka, thank you very much. I wish we had a little bit more time, but unfortunately, I've got to wrap it up. We're running out of time here, but I want to thank the three of you, Jamie Zimron, Renee Powell, and Rebecka Heinmert, for joining me on Golf Talk Live and talking about the women's retreats. I think it's a great idea, and anything that I can do, Jamie, just reach out, and I'll be more than happy to do anything I can help.
Thank you so much, Ted, and thanks everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for having us on.
You're very welcome, and I look forward to having the three of you back on again. I think it's definitely a worthwhile cause that you're doing, and you're doing a lot of great work. And Jamie, keep it up. And as I said, I'll talk with you soon. And if there's something I can do to help make it even more successful, I'll be more than happy to do that.
You're the best. Thank you, Ted.
You're welcome.
So much.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, ladies. Good evening, and have a great weekend and much continued success with the retreat.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, that was Jamie Leno Zimron, Dr. Renee Powell, and Rebecka Heinmert talking about the women's business retreats that they're holding. And it sounds like they're having a lot of fun. Always looking forward to helping those in the business. Golf is certainly, in my opinion, one of the great businesses out there. There's just so many opportunities, not just for playing the game, but also creating new business contacts and developing your business. So, and just going out there and having some fun. So I want to thank my special guests again on the Coach's Corner panel, Matthew Cooke and Chad Phillips, from Game Like Training, for joining on some great panel discussion, and Jamie Leno Zimron and Dr. Renee Powell and Rebecka Heinmert for helping make this 100th episode a great episode. And thankfully, we didn't have any glitches along the way. We were able to get all the information out. But obviously, we've just gone off air, and this part here, of course, will be in the recorded. Let me also thank very quickly all the listeners around the world for faithfully tuning into Golf Talk Live each week. I certainly enjoy and get a lot of pleasure from having a number of highly talented coaches, teaching professionals, authors, and entrepreneurs stop by the show, and it's through their participation and guest appearances that have helped to make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. A special thank you to some of the sponsors and supporters of the program, Mr. Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide. If you're interested in getting a copy of Jonathan's guide, go to southcoastgolfguide.com. Or if you're interested in advertising in his guide, it covers the southeastern part of the United States, from literally Texas all the way over here to Florida. Go to reach out to Jonathan at southcoastgolfguide.com. And if you want to get a copy, visit the website, check it out, southcoastgolfguide.com, and you can put a request if you're not going to be down here in the southeastern part of the United States or not planning to come here in the next little bit. Jonathan will be more than happy to send one out to you. But if you are planning on coming down, most of the Edwin Watts and some of the major golf stores do carry them down here in the southeast, and a lot of the top premium golf courses as well carry that guide in there. So have a look out for that, South Coast Golf Guide, and Mr. Jonathan Lair is a good friend and a great asset to this golfing community. Meredith Kirk, of course, from Meredith Kirk Golf, and Endless Golf Beach Myrtle Beach magazine. Excuse me, I knew I'd get it out there one way or another. Thank you for your continued support. And of course, she was the 2014 Mrs. South Carolina winner, and just a great lady. I've had her on the show a couple of times. Enjoy her continued support of the program. Nikki and Tiffany Litherland, always enjoy your help in spreading the word for this program. Mr. Bernie Pinder from OnticGolf.com, a great line of custom designed putters. Sean Kelly, owner of LinkedGolfers.com. Linked Golfers is the largest community on LinkedIn. He's now taken that out here in the last year or so, and LinkedGolfers.com is a great site to go and connect with some top-level people in the golf business. And, of course, Mr. Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland. Again, thank you very much for joining me and tuning in to the 100th episode of Golf Talk Live. I hope that you've enjoyed the first 100, and the next 100 I hope are going to be even bigger and better. And I'm working on some great projects for the new year particularly, and I hope to have those all finalized here shortly. And once I do, I'll start making some announcements of what we're going to be doing for next year. But thank you very much for your continued support. I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. And thank you for your patience and understanding. Sometimes, unfortunately, one of the downsides to technology is sometimes you have a few glitches here along the way. But thank you for your continued support and coming back time and time again. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week, and I will see you next Thursday right here on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody.